Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of AACRAO's Credential Chats. I am really excited to be joined this week by somebody I've been following and learning a lot from for over a year now, Jarrell Townsend from Oregon State University. Jarrell, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Jarrell, for anybody who hasn't seen your work, I have a feeling they're about to just be bowled over. But maybe just a starting place is to kind of just quickly frame, what it is that is the approach at Oregon State University, and also for our ACRO audience, how and why it came to be that the Office of the Registrar has such a leadership role.
Yeah. Here at Oregon State, the registrar's office, we got involved with micro-credentials, really from really like the operational standpoint of how to take the idea and make it a reality. Some of the questions that came about of like, how do we record students' completion and how do we track students? How do we want to incorporate this in our information system? Those were questions that needed to be answered by the registrar's office, and that's kind of how we got involved with the project from the beginning. And like we're a little bit different here at Oregon State. Is like we don't transcript completion for our micro credentials, and that decision was made by the registrar, and mainly was due to the like the process we use to get the program approved. We wanted to move quickly, and because of us wanting to be nimble and be able to respond to the market and demand and things like that, we used a different approval process compared to like a standard degree program. And so with that, the decision came to not transcript it just because of just a different approval that we had to use. But yeah, like the registrar's office here at Oregon State, we had to figure out how to make it happen, how to implement it, and try to and be able to report off of it and things like that as well. And so that's how we got involved and still involved, and we'll probably we'll always be involved with micro credentials here at Oregon State.
Well, just from the sounds of it, it was, Rebecca, your boss, and your team had just a really clear vision that, you know, we might not be transcripting these, and these are learning records that, our office needs to be involved with.
Yeah, most definitely. And I know, I mean, it is possible in the future that we're looking more towards like a comprehensive learning record where we kind of put everything into one spot. Right now, where we're at in the institution, it's just we're not there yet. And I know a lot of schools aren't there, but yeah, Rebecca and our team, we definitely had a clear vision of how we wanted to implement it. And we know the systems very well. We know all the approval process and what are the positives and negatives versus like somebody coming from more of the programming side, not necessarily having all the details of more on the implementation side, and just making sure that all needs are addressed. And so we don't kind of get, halfway through or, discovering problems years later that we could have prevented with having a better game plan up front.
As somebody who came into the office of the registrar knowing nothing about registraring, one of the things that struck me right away is that registrars are basically, creating bumper bowling for the rest of the university so that nobody has to roll gutter balls because we are here to prevent that from happening if you let us. Some of the stuff you talked about, Jarrell, really just kind of to me resonates with, just business processes, which is another place of real expertise, I think, in most of, our campuses that the Office of the Registrar can bring. And so, I know just in talking to you other times and before we went live, y'all are thinking really hard about just business processes. Do you mind just sharing some of those and just kind of what went into those? Because I think that's something that this audience could really get a lot out of.
Yeah, so first I'll say like our goal with Oregon State and micro credentials is we want to um, open it up to not only people that are trying to upskill, reskill outside of the Oregon State ecosystem, but we want our students to have the opportunities to take advantage of this program as well. And so with that, we've always kept in mind that we have over, I believe, 38,000 students at Oregon State, a little over 24,000 on campus. So we've always kept in mind that our larger population, how we can make sure that we're able to scale our program to be able to meet those students' needs without overtaxing our ability to function in the office. As of right now, we have put a lot of resources into the operational side of things, but that'll come. And so when we started our program, it was winter 2022. We had 8 programs that we've offered, and I think we have maybe roughly 50 students. Right now, we're at 49 micro-credentials with over 2,000 students, and it's continuing to grow. And we opened it up to the campus. And so we had to figure out a way in the registrar's office of how to um, process and award micro-credentials for a mass amount of students. And so over the past year, we've worked on creating our system's called AWA, but it's pretty much a like an interfacing system that works with our student information system to pull data in and
And did we just lose your
determine if
brother?
they
Oh, you're here.
yeah, and determine if they complete it or not. And then that allows us to save a lot of manpower because prior to this job being created, we had to review everybody manually. And, granted, if it get to 20, 30, 40,000 students in the program, it'd be nearly impossible to do all the work manually. And so we were able to automate some of our process to really cut down our review time, our processing time, and our awarding time. And so now that we're expanding our program, we're able to handle the potential increase in students participating.
And I think that sustainably scaling it is a huge challenge with any sort of change management. And definitely with micro credentials as we go from something that one person can reasonably handle to maybe one person could do it, but it's going to take technology to help us out with that. What are some other examples of kind of business processes that y'all are considering at Oregon State that, whether it's decisions you've already made or decisions that you're making?
Yeah. Another thing we're looking into doing is for our current students right now, the system we have set up is that theoretically they fill out a form, check which micro credentials they're interested in, and then my team, we're a team of 2 right now, and we receive the email and we process that, put the attribute on the student, add them to the program theoretically. And so while each individual student doesn't take that much time, the accumulation does. One of the things we're looking at is finding a way, whether it's through AI or DocuSign or some form of technology that is already available to us, to take those emails and automatically update it or give us the ability to mass update everybody at one time. So instead of answering individual emails, the work is being done automatically and we're monitoring it through reports and things like that, or we can process everybody at one time and then move forward with our other responsibilities throughout the term. Is one of the things that is just a reality of micro credentials right now. I feel like for a lot of schools and a lot of administrators in higher education, is that there's not necessarily being a lot of like financial investment into the program. Seems like there's a lot of schools are kind of still in like a wait and see approach, or needing evidence before they make that investment. And we're similar to that. Um, and so we're not necessarily getting given additional resources to do the work we were doing prior to this and continuing it. So finding ways to cut down on the manpower, people power that is needed to process things has been critical for us, and that's one of the reasons why we're excited for the expansion of our program, is because we know operationally that we can handle the expansion.
Mm. Yeah, I love that so much. And you kind of talked about as you're fielding emails, I know that you've shared with me your example of what about a student who, writes in asking some questions that they're probably not the only one who has those questions. Do you mind kind of just sharing with folks who are watching this some of those questions that you anticipate and business process wise, how you are starting to think about, sustainably handling that?
Mhm. Yeah, so I feel like probably our I'd say probably our biggest challenge so far, or at least in the immediate future, is just awareness around the program, awareness of what a micro credential can do, what are like the value propositions that come out of it, how a student signs up for the program, how they know they're in the program. And so like some of the questions that I've received over the past couple months, so I had a student sign up for the program when they were like admitted, or through orientation earlier in the summer, And then when classes start, they're like, hey, like I signed up for this, but I don't know where to go for classes. I don't know like who to ask. If I'm actually in the program or not, where do I check these things? And so right now we don't have the best way of displaying to a student that they're in these 3, 4, 5, etc. micro-credential programs. So that's something that we're working on, is being able to have a central location or a place the students say, hey, this is where you find your in this micro-credential. This is how registration works. And those questions can be different depending on what population you're in. Are you a non-degree student who is attempting to get a new micro-credential to kind of pivot careers? Registration might look different for you than if you're a current student looking to get a micro-credential while you're pursuing a degree to hopefully getting a job earlier, get some more work experience before you actually graduate. And so we're getting a lot of questions from students just asking how I find the information, how it works. What does it mean for me? I had a question from a student who there's a decent amount of prerequisites for one of our micro credentials, and he's like, "Hey, I don't plan on finishing these anytime soon. Do I stay in the program until I'm ready to actually take the classes, or do I take myself out and then sign up later?" And so, one of the things that we'll be focusing on over the next year and probably going forward is just uh, educating our campus on how a micro credential works, how to accept your badge, who to ask for certain questions, where it's a registration or checking if you're enrolled in a program or not, where to find this information, and making it easy for students so they can have a similar experience with our degree seeking programs that they have with the micro credential, since a lot of the support that's available is similar, and we just are working on doing a better job of tying it all together.
Yeah, I imagine that, if your call center gets questions, that check with Jarrell for this is not a sustainable business process for solving this. And also some really important stuff you touch on, right? I mean, depending on like that last example you shared, and there might be implications there of a clock starting. And again, this is where the office of the registrar comes in, that there's other offices on campus that don't that they've never heard about the clock starting. And, all of a sudden, through no, pejorative intent, we've, put a learner in a really uncomfortable situation that could impact their financial aid or something because of that. So I think that's really important. Uh, Another thing I wanted to ask you about that I'm really excited to hear about, because we just don't know what we don't know yet in this just overall, especially in higher ed. And that's around just the program assessment. And you mentioned that you all are starting to look at that and actually developing instruments to start paying attention to and gathering data from that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, assessment is something we've been chasing for a little bit now. It's probably another maybe back for the past 2 years, trying to figure out what other people are doing to assess their programs. How do we want to assess our programs? And we kind of came to the conclusion that we needed to know what the students feel, what their experience is. And so we just released a student survey over the past week to two populations, one to students who are currently pursuing a micro-credential, and another survey to students who've completed one already, so we can try to get some of those stories and see if students are actually using their badges, or they mention them in interviews as they've been able to help somebody get a job, and kind of what the perception is and why a current student is pursuing their micro-credential, and just collecting that data so we can see kind of where our program is at, how people are feeling. Um, and we also are working on just trying to tie our learning objectives and matching those with the course outcomes, and matching that with the skills that we expect students to get. And so we're trying to get feedback on that. It's like, okay, so for example, we have a programming fundamentals badge. You know, did going through and taking those 3 classes, did it actually help you learn programming? And trying to answer those kind of questions to see just really one, I mean, we feel like the program is worth it. We feel like there's a value there, but are the students and the people that are going through the program, are they seeing that? And then also try to identify ways that we can be better as a program, whether better support students, or do we need to have more resources like on the career side, or what to do after you finish a micro credential? Do we need to help students learn how to talk about the micro credential? And so, yes, so we do just initiate a student survey, and we're really excited. We're seeing a really good response rate so far, and we should hopefully have results from that survey by the end of the term.
That is so cool, especially I think something that is just so really just seemingly just embedded in, the community of practitioners working on this stuff is that student-centered kind of focus you take there. And that, additionally, as you're looking at assessment and measurements, that something I heard you say there, Jarrell, is stories, right? That you're like, what is the story that's being told here? And what does that mean? And looking at that as, one of the important things about this, that there's recognition and there's storytelling.
Yeah, most definitely. We want to we, I feel like the stories are how you sell the program to, or
Mm.
convince students and get them more interested. You feel like if somebody has done it, and it's real, and there's a real example, then that gives somebody the motivation, or give them the ability and the courage to want to try it more, and want to pursue the micro credential versus it being like a new program, and it sounds cool, but what can I really do with that? Like, we know what a degree is supposed to do for you. And so, we're really trying to define what a micro credential can do for you as well.
Yeah, I'm absolutely, and my guess is there's going to be people reaching out to you after this, after this, Jarrell. They, oh, you have data. I think there's a lot of people doing master's work, dissertation work, looking that's starting to look into this stuff, and they're probably desperate for data sets that like those that you're about to have at the end of the semester. So, sorry in advance for all the emails you're about to get from folks who want to help
Yeah.
lean on you for research. But Jarrell Townsend, Oklahoma State University, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Yeah. Oregon State, and appreciate you, Noah, as always. Always you a great person to know and to connect with in this space. So I always appreciate every opportunity you throw my way, and Oregon State's way as well.
Hey, absolutely. And thanks everybody for joining AACRAO's Credential Chats and have a badge-worthy week, everybody.